When did you work at Sports Direct and in which department?
I worked there between 2012 and 2013, working in the footwear department.
How do you feel you were treated during your job at Sports Direct?
At the time I was working at Sports Direct, at times I didn't feel like I was getting treated very well. I felt very tense at times. I didn't expect to be getting much shifts at the time. I was very on edge. I was thinking if I don't sell insoles, I might not get as much shifts, and I felt very unhappy at times when I was working at Sports Direct.
How did you feel being checked for security every day?
Every time I used to come into Sports Direct, I used to feel very tense. At the end of the shift, I was going to get checked. They used to check my waist, my neck. They used to take my ankles. Every time I used to feel objectified, I used to think these checks are happening in front of other customers. They must be thinking, what's going on?
How do you feel about the pay you received during your time at Sports Direct?
While I was at Sports Direct, I used to get paid minimum wage, but I also used to go above and beyond and work early hours before the shop opened and late hours when the shop closed. I used to do the stock returns. I used to get the stock in, and I thought at that time, that's overtime. I should be getting paid more. I used to work on bank holidays, but never did I get paid any extra for any of them shifts.
How did you feel about having a 0-hour contract?
At times I did not like having a 0-hour contract. I used to come in for a 4-hour shift, and last minute I used to be asked, do you want to stay on for another 4 hours? And at times I used to plan my day around my shifts. So when I used to be asked, I used to always say no, but then it would always hinder my next week. I would always get less hours. And also I knew a few full-time employees that were not happy with the 0-hour contract because they used to come in, they have a family to feed, and they couldn't get the amount of hours they needed to be able to feed their family.
How did you feel towards your managers?
At times I felt like they were very patronising. If I didn't manage to sell enough insoles, I wasn't allowed to go to the toilet, I wasn't allowed to have a water break. And I just always used to feel very weird around my managers because I used to think if I'm not doing good enough, they're always judging me, and they're the people that are always dependent on how well I did. They would choose my shifts, and they would always take liberties and take my section. If I was about to sell a shoe for commission or was about to sell an insole, sometimes they'll use up my power to be taking me off that section and then taking my commission when I thought I deserved it.
Overall, what did the culture of the company feel like?
It always used to be quite tense. Every time I used to come into work, everyone was working up against each other, seeing who could get the most commission. And sometimes when you're selling something, someone might jump in the way, try to take your commission. I felt all the time I was working against people instead of working with people to make the company better.
Were there any good parts of the job?
I did like my section manager. He always used to motivate me. I did get quite close to him. Sometimes the commission system was quite good because then it would motivate me to actually push the product and actually work for the company and myself to make more money.
What do you think Sports Direct can do now to change and rebuild its reputation?
First of all, I think they should increase their wage so you don't need to work as hard with the commission, and I think that also will help build team morale, and it'll make you work with each other instead of working against each other to get that money in for the company and for yourself. And I felt a bit objectified, as I said, while I was getting searched, and I feel like there should be more trust in the company, in yourself, because you are working for them and you are dedicating your hours to working that certain shift.
When did you work at Sports Direct and in which department?
I was working at Sports Direct for around 5 weeks towards the end of the summer holidays of 2016. And I was in a range of departments, but mainly on footwear and working on the tills.
How did you feel you were treated as an employee?
I believe that on the whole, the treatment was okay, although there definitely could have been some major improvements. There definitely could have been more communication between the senior management and people on a lower level. But on the day-to-day level, when you had people who were working with you on the ground, there was lots of support, there was lots of camaraderie, and on the whole, the experience wasn't too bad.
Was your contract 0 hours and how did it make you feel?
The fact that it was 0 hours was quite a negative thing, to be honest, coupled with the fact that the pay was quite low. So the motivation often was quite hard to begin with, so it's quite a struggle to keep yourself going. But yeah, the 0 hour contract definitely was an issue. It's something that I struggled with at the beginning, for sure.
How did the commission system work and how did you feel about it?
At Sports Direct, you got commissioned for selling specific items that were store-owned brands. So certain boots, certain other accessories like insoles, cleaning kits, and various other accessories as well. And because the pay was quite low, there was quite a lot of emphasis on boosting your pay by trying to sell a lot of these other items on commission. So whilst you were able to really increase your pay if you were good at what you were doing, it definitely made every day a little bit harder, and it definitely pushed you a little bit more because in order to take home a decent hourly wage, you needed to work really hard and really boost your commission to take home a decent average wage.
What was your relationship with the senior management?
On the whole, I'd say it was fairly positive, but again, there were definitely one or two issues whilst I was there. Some senior managers tended to feel, in my opinion, they were different from the ordinary employee working on the floor, and as such, to me and to many of the people on the floor, it felt like they weren't working as hard. And also regarding the different sections and areas that we were working on, it was definitely no coincidence that senior management tended to take the better areas for commission for themselves in order to boost their own hourly wage.
So overall, what do you think the overall culture of the company was like?
Overall, I believe there was still quite a divide between senior management and ordinary colleagues, but between people on the floor, there was definitely a lot of teamwork and a lot of communication, a lot of camaraderie. So on the whole, I would say it was quite positive because the people that you worked with day in, day out definitely did their best to support you and try to help you. But definitely there's some improvements still to be made between the relations between senior management and ordinary people on the floor.
What do you think they could do in the future to solve some of these problems?
For starters, I think they should definitely try and increase the basic wage so that there's less emphasis on commission. Because then when you have a bit more security, it enables you to work more positively. So that would definitely be one of my starting inputs. Coupled with that, I would say that they should definitely put in place more fixed contracts, because then that enables people to have the security that enables them to really plan out their life and to be able to plan for the incomes coming in, because otherwise it can be quite irregular and quite unstable, and that can be quite stressful for ordinary people with having to pay bills at a regular date. So that would be another stress of mine. And then finally, I'd also say that this is try and bridge the gap between senior management and ordinary employees. So to try and make sure that there's really a sort of collective team atmosphere which would enable everyone to feel more positive about going to work.